D.B. Cooper, the man who hijacked a plane and vanished forever. On November 24, 1971, the day before Thanksgiving, a quiet man walked into an airport in Portland, Oregon. He wore a dark business suit, a white shirt, and a black tie. Nothing about him stood out. He looked like any ordinary businessman catching a short flight. But within a few hours, this calm and polite passenger would commit one of the most daring crimes in aviation history. He would hijack a plane, collect a ransom of $200,000, and then parachute into the darkness. His name was D.B. Cooper, and to this day no one knows what happened to him. The man bought a one-way ticket at the airport counter for Northwest Orient Airlines Flight 305. The flight was a short trip from Portland to Seattle. There were only 36 passengers on board, along with 6 crew members. Cooper took seat 18C near the back of the plane. Witnesses later said he appeared calm, polite, and well-spoken. He even ordered a drink of bourbon and soda. Nothing about him suggested trouble, but shortly after the plane took off, Cooper called over a flight attendant named Florence Schaffner. He handed her a small folded note. At first, she assumed it was just a passenger flirting with her, so she slipped the note into her purse without reading it. But Cooper leaned closer and quietly said something that changed everything. "You'd better read that note, I have a bombs." When she opened the note, the message was simple and terrifying. Cooper was hijacking the plane. He demanded $200,000 in cash and 4 parachutes. To prove he was serious, he opened his briefcase slightly. Inside, she saw red cylinders connected by wires, something that looked very much like a bomb. The flight attendant immediately informed the cockpit. The pilots contacted air traffic control, and soon authorities were alerted. Instead of panicking, Cooper remained calm. He even reassured the passengers that everything would be fine. Most of them had no idea they were part of a hijacking. Authorities in Seattle quickly began gathering the ransom money. Agents from the Federal Bureau of Investigation worked with local banks to collect $200,000 in $20 bills. Every single bill was photographed and its serial number carefully recorded, so the money could be traced if it was ever spent. Meanwhile, the aircraft continued circling the skies near Seattle, while preparations were made on the ground. At the airport, officials rushed to meet Cooper's demands. They obtained 4 parachutes, 2 main parachutes, and 2 reserve parachutes from a nearby skydiving school. Cooper had specifically asked for multiple parachutes, possibly to make authorities believe he might force someone on the plane to jump with him. After nearly 2 hours in the air, the plane was finally cleared to land at Seattle Tacoma Airport. Emergency vehicles surrounded the runway, but they stayed at a safe distance to avoid provoking the hijacker. A single airline employee approached the aircraft carrying the ransom money packed inside a canvas bag, along with the parachutes. The items were carefully delivered through the rear staircase of the plane. Inside the cabin, Cooper calmly inspected the parachutes and briefly checked the bag of money. Satisfied that his demands had been met, he allowed all 36 passengers to safely leave the aircraft. Most of them had no idea how close they had come to danger. Only the pilot, co-pilot, flight engineer, and 1 flight attendant remained on board. And the most unbelievable part of the story was still about to happen. Cooper instructed the pilots to take off again. This time, he ordered them to fly toward Mexico City. He gave very specific instructions. The plane had to fly low and slow at about 10,000 feet, with the landing gear partially deployed. These unusual flight conditions made it easier to parachute from the aircraft. As the plane flew through the dark skies over Washington state, Cooper prepared for his escape. He tied the ransom money to himself. He put on a parachute. Then he lowered the rear staircase of the plane. Around 8:00 p.m., somewhere over the forests of the Pacific Northwest, D.B. Cooper jumped into the freezing night, into a storm, into complete darkness, and he was never seen again. The case immediately became one of the biggest investigations in the history of the Federal Bureau of Investigation. Agents searched hundreds of square miles of forest and mountains. Military aircraft scanned the area. Investigators examined thousands of suspects, but they found nothing. No parachute, no body. No ransom money. It was as if Cooper had simply vanished. Nearly 9 years later, in 1980, a young boy named Brian Ingram was digging in the sand along the Columbia River. Suddenly, he uncovered several bundles of cash buried in the ground. When investigators examined the money, they made a shocking discovery. The serial numbers matched the ransom money given to DB Cooper. About $5,800 had been found. But it raised even more questions. How did the money end up there, and what happened to the rest of it? Over the years, dozens of suspects have been proposed. Some investigators believe Cooper was an experienced skydiver. Others think he may have died during the dangerous jump. The truth is, no one knows. In 2016, after more than 4 decades of investigation, the Federal Bureau of Investigation officially suspended the case. Despite years of searching, thousands of interviews, and countless leads, the true identity of DB Cooper was never confirmed. The mystery, however, never disappeared. To this day, investigators, journalists, and amateur detectives continue to debate what really happened on that cold November night in 1971. Did Cooper survive the dangerous jump and escape with the money? Was he a skilled skydiver who planned every detail perfectly? Or did he vanish into the wilderness, never making it out alive? No one knows for sure. What we do know is that one man managed to do something almost unbelievable. He boarded a plane like an ordinary passenger, hijacked it without firing a single shot, collected a fortune in ransom money, then jumped into the darkness and disappeared forever. More than 50 years later, the legend of DB Cooper still remains one of the greatest unsolved mysteries in aviation history. And perhaps the most fascinating part of the story is this: somewhere out there, the truth may still be waiting to be discovered. If you enjoyed this story, please remember to subscribe for more incredible mysteries and true stories from history.